This happened 2 years ago, and I still don't have answers for what I saw. I don't even know if I believe in ghosts, but whatever lived in that house was real, and it wanted me there. My name's Clara. I was 29 when it happened. I'd just gone through one of the worst years of my life. My mom died unexpectedly, my relationship ended shortly after, and I quit my job after what I guess you'd call a nervous breakdown. I moved into a cheap apartment hoping for a clean slate. That's when the letter came. It was hand-delivered by this man in a gray coat. He didn't say much, just handed me a thick yellowed envelope and walked off before I could ask who he was. Inside was a formal letter from a law firm. Apparently, I had inherited a house in a place called Dagger Falls, Maine. The estate belonged to someone named Edith Wren. According to the letter, she was my great-aunt. Thing is, I had never heard of her. My mom always told me we didn't have any extended family. There were no photos, no instructions, just the address and a key. I decided to check it out. I had nothing to lose. I took a bus to Maine. The drop-off point was literally in the middle of nowhere. Foggy woods, no cell reception. The only sign I saw was half buried in moss, Whisperwood Manor, 1 mile. I walked the rest of the way. The house looked like something from a horror movie. Massive, with tall gables and blackened wood siding. Ivy covered most of the windows. It looked abandoned. But the weird thing was, the inside wasn't dusty. No cobwebs. The air didn't even smell musty. It was like someone had cleaned it just before I arrived. Even the fireplace was still smoldering. At first I thought maybe this was some kind of prank or a setup, but there was no one around, just trees and silence. On the second day I found something strange. There was a hidden room behind a sliding panel in the study. Inside were a dozen portraits, each one showing someone from the Wren family, all pale and grim looking, dressed in black. The last portrait was of a woman who looked disturbingly like me, but her face had been smeared with black paint, like someone didn't want it to be seen. The nameplate read, Edith Wren, 1961. That night I had a nightmare. I was back in that room and all the portraits were watching me. The one of Edith wasn't smeared anymore. She was smiling. Her eyes looked alive. I woke up drenched in sweat, and the door to that secret room was wide open, even though I know I closed it. Over the next few nights, the house changed. I started hearing whispers inside the walls. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe mice, but it got worse. I'd be lying in bed and hear footsteps pacing above me, slow, deliberate ones, the kind that only a person makes. On the fourth night, I was just drifting off when I heard a voice, clear as day, right next to my ear. Clara! I jumped up, heart racing, but no one was there. That morning, I checked every room, every hallway. I even went down to the basement, where I found a locked door I hadn't seen before. It was heavy, metal-bound, and covered in these weird symbols that I'd later realize were also carved into the trees around the property. My key didn't fit. I tried everything to get it open, but it wouldn't budge. As I turned to leave, I heard it again, a whisper, not coming from behind me, but from inside the locked room. She's waiting. The next day, I found a journal hidden under a loose floorboard in the attic. It was old, dusty, and belonged to Edith. Here's some of what it said. The house is awake. It speaks. It remembers. I shouldn't have brought him here. He's not the same. He stares at the mirrors. He smiles in his sleep. The door must stay shut. I hear them scratching, begging. I must not listen. The last entry chilled me to my core. I dreamed of a girl. My blood. She will come here. She will wake it. God forgive me. That night I woke up and found something on my nightstand. It was a key, not the one from the envelope. This one was old, rusted, and shaped like a serpent. I don't know how I knew, but I was sure it opened the basement door. I tried to ignore it. I even threw it out the window. But when I woke up the next morning, it was back on the nightstand. So I gave in. I went to the basement and unlocked the door. Behind it was a narrow spiral staircase leading down, far below the house. The walls were lined with mirrors, dozens of them, tall, narrow, and coated in a thin layer of dust. But each time I passed one, I saw something move, something that wasn't me. At the bottom of the stairs was a circular chamber. In the center stood a single mirror, taller than the rest, its surface cracked and blackened. When I looked into it, my reflection didn't move with me. It stood still. And then it smiled. That's when the mirror shattered. Figures came out of the glass. Dozens of them. Pale, sunken eyes, mouths stitched shut. Some looked like kids. Others looked ancient. They didn't speak. They just circled me. Then someone stepped forward. It was Edith, only she wasn't alive. She looked right at me and said, "I tried to seal it away, but the house feeds on blood, memory. You were the key. You woke it." I screamed and ran. I don't remember how I got out, but I somehow made it back to the surface. The house was alive. I swear it was breathing. The walls throbbed like veins. In the portrait room, the paintings were on fire, faces melting, eyes crying black tears. And then the house screamed. I mean it. It screamed, like a living thing in agony. I bolted into the woods. When I looked back, the house collapsed in on itself, like it was being sucked into the ground. By the time I got help, there was nothing left. No ruins, no address, no town named Dagger Falls. Just a burned clearing in the forest, and the key still in my pocket. I don't tell this story much. When I do, people assume I had some sort of mental breakdown. Maybe I did. But then how do you explain the key? How do you explain that sometimes, when I walk past mirrors, my reflection lingers just a little too long? Or that when I close my eyes at night, I still hear the house whisper my name? If you ever get a letter offering you a house from someone you've never met, burn it. Some doors should never be opened.